I want you to ask yourself a question, and I want you to sit with the real honest answer rather than the one perhaps you want it to be. Just picture this for one moment. If you could not work tomorrow, I don't mean a planned holiday or a scheduled day off, but genuinely, you unexpectedly wouldn't get to the clinic tomorrow. What happens? Because for most clinic owners, the answer to that is everything stops. Your appointments have to be probably rescheduled or even cancelled. Your revenue is going to disappear, and the team does not know what to do without you there. Now, if those are your answers, you don't have a business or a brand. You've just built, well, a clinic or maybe a very demanding job. The result of this means, guys, you cannot be sick, you can't be injured, and you can't even have time off for an emergency. Because guess what? The moment you do that, everything's going to collapse. Welcome back, guys. I'm Nurse Sarah Louise. I help aesthetic clinic owners build more profitable businesses, create real freedom from their clinics, and stop trading time for money. I've been in the aesthetics industry for 15 years. I've owned my own clinic for 9, and I'm the founder of The Business Injection, where I've helped hundreds of clinic owners across the UK grow their revenue, build their teams, and start building businesses that don't rely on them being there every single day. Let's talk about the risk nobody talks about. Most clinic owners have done a genuinely thorough job of managing the risks they can see. Insurance, clinical governance, CQC, and even the consent processes. The reason we always have these regulatory frameworks in place is because those risks are visible, and the consequences of ignoring those are completely obvious and somewhat dangerous. But there is a category of risk that most clinic owners have no coverage for, and it is the risk of only being you. The risk of one human being at the center of the entire business is the risk that nobody prepares for, because it really requires you to feel uncomfortable reality that the business is entirely dependent on your physical presence to function. And that feeling is really not nice when you finally work hard enough and then cannot enjoy what you have built. I was speaking with a clinic owner recently on one of my mentorship lives. She had a hand injury scare. It was nothing serious in the end. But in that moment, her first thought was not about the injury. It was about the business, because she had nothing in place. She had no practitioner trained to step in and take her role. She had no systems for the patient communication. She had no contingency at all. And that scare was the moment she realized that the business she had spent years building had zero enterprise value. And in fact, it couldn't scale. And it couldn't even be sold if she needed to cash in. It would literally just stop if she stepped away. So when people say, I've not prepared for this, I get it. That is a genuinely terrifying thing to prepare for, because it means that everything she had built was one bad month, one injury, or one expected time away from collapse. So let's talk about the 3 things that break without a contingency plan in place. The first, naturally, is revenue. If you're the only person generating income and you cannot work, well, the income stops. And most clinic owners do not have 3 to 6 months of operating costs sitting in the bank account. This means a significant injury or illness does not just disrupt the business, it can threaten its complete survival within weeks. The second is patient relationships. If you're the only practitioner your patients are loyal to, this suffers, because they are not driven to the brand. And therefore, when you cannot treat them, some of them will not wait. And then they'll find somewhere else. And that's because the relationship with you personally was there instead of there being no independent brand relationship or the patients to stay loyal to that. The third is team confidence. If you have staff and something happens to you unexpectedly, often they have no clear line of authority. They have no escalation process, no audits to check their performance. And guess what happens? The team will default to waiting and nothing progresses. It's like everyone suddenly sits in idle. So what does an exit-ready business actually look like? I talk about this on my webinar regularly, because without these types of systems in place, you cannot scale, exit, optimize, or even take just a real holiday. Because what happens when the cat is away? Well, the mice will play. I always say this. I learned this the hard way in my own clinic. When I went away, things went south, or they didn't go at all. Not because my staff were bad people, but because the business was structured around my entire presence. And my absence reveals all the gaps every time. Simple things that made the clinic run smoothly on a day-to-day basis, like SOPs that were in my hands, and the audits that I typically ran monthly from my mind to mouth. These didn't happen. Yet an exit-ready clinic, which realistically is the same thing as a contingency-ready clinic, has a few things that most clinics are missing. A second practitioner trained to your standard, not just technically, but in the consultation process, the rebooking process, and the patient experience, to have real brand quality. There is always written protocols so that the standard does not live only in your head. There is a well-defined patient communication process. The team can then run without you. And of course, there's always a financial structure that does not depend on your personal output. It doesn't need you in the building to cover the bills next month. Now, none of those things happen overnight, but it all starts with one vision. You are going to build a business that can function without you, rather than a job that requires you to be present in order to exist. Now, the question that changes everything. If you had to step away from the business for 6 weeks today, starting right now, what would survive and what would collapse? Everything that collapses is a structural risk. This is not a staffing risk, a marketing risk, or even a patient risk, by the way. It's a true structural risk, which requires a structural fix. Not just harder work, not a new staff member, or better time management. Now, the clinic owners I see who build something sustainable are the ones who can answer that question honestly and then do something about what the answer reveals. And the ones who cannot answer it, or perhaps prefer not to, are the ones who are one bad month away from a crisis they could have seen coming years ago. Guys, I'm not telling you this to frighten you. I'm telling you this because I have sat with clinic owners like myself who have had that crisis, who lost immense time and money. But in contrast, I have taught clinic owners who have had the systems in place and were able to conquer those challenges literally effortlessly. It's just like what people say. I have worked so damn hard for this to perhaps go down the drain. Correct. You have put too much into what you've built to let this be exposed. So if the honest answer to those questions is that it all stops without you, you must make the move now. Not next month, not after next summer, but literally now. Guys, I'm Nurse Sarah Louise. This is the Business Injection, and I'll see you next time.